Here's a look at all the guys that they talked to in their initial round of interviews as they've knocked it out. Now, with the Lions out of the playoffs, the expectation is that this head coaching search is about to speed up, and I mean really speed up. Like the Jaguars might have a head coach before the end of the week. Yep, it could happen that fast. NFL teams can start to bring in under contract candidates for in-person interviews on Monday. So the question is, who should the Jaguars bring in for a second interview from the bunch? My top three are easy. Not much debate in my mind. It's Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay, Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Lions, and then the lone defensive guy, Aaron Glenn, the Lions defensive coordinator. So let's take a look at the resumes really quickly here. Ben Johnson is the offensive whiz kid up there in Detroit. He's been leading that Lions offense since 2022, and he is the guy everybody wants because he knows how to put points on the scoreboard. Now, the other offensive guy in the bunch, Liam Cohen. He's only been in his position in Tampa Bay for a single season, but he's kind of been there and done that and been an offensive coordinator from Kentucky to over in LA with the Rams. Liam Cohen has done fantastic things with that Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense this year. If you hadn't watched him, it's worth going to check out some of it because he was creative, and that's why he's getting an interview after just being in Tampa just a single year. Then the guy that's a little different, Aaron Glenn. He's the one defensive coordinator in the group, and he's been a defensive coordinator up there in Detroit. But before that, he was on the Saints staff and then a player, a longtime player, even one-time Jaguar kind of player. So while all three of these candidates are qualified, they're all also just a little different. So I decided to take a completely unscientific poll just to try and see what people are feeling. And to call these results one-sided, I mean, Ben Johnson kind of won by a landslide. Look, it's clearly Ben Johnson or bust for a lot of folks out there. You know what? There's nothing wrong with that. If you watch the Lions lose that close game to the Commanders, you saw the creativity that just has teams and fans drooling about the chance to hire Ben Johnson. But let's be clear, one game should not make or break a candidate. Ben Johnson would be an absolute home run hire, but so would defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. Yeah, I know, I can hear you. The Lions defense gave up 45 points on Saturday night. And honestly, that's a rough ending. But the coach on the other sideline that was celebrating was Dan Quinn. Now, he's also a defensive coach, and he was the Cowboys defensive coordinator just last year when they were upset in the playoffs by the Green Bay Packers and gave up 48 points. It's just one game. Look, it happens. It's not ideal, but it does. It happens. Look. Ultimately, don't judge a book by its cover, and don't judge a head coaching candidate by just one game. One game is far from the resume, and it honestly shouldn't burn the resume. A big part of what a head coach does has absolutely nothing to do with play calling or even X's and O's. It's the big part of it is about the people. Let's see what the players think.
Why, are we cooked?
Yeah, because
You know what they say, players over scheme.
That's Amon-Ra St. Brown, Lions wide receiver, talking about the possibility of Ben Johnson leaving. So, look, people throw out the phrase, it's not the X's and O's, it's the Jimmies and Joes a lot, and they do it when it's convenient. But then they forget about it during a head coaching search. But it still applies because the head coach has to be ready to stand in front of the room and lead a team. That's the biggest difference between coaches that are good coordinators, a guy like Gus Bradley, and guys that are good head coaches. The Lions and the Commanders put on an absolute offensive show, but both of their head coaches are actually culture guys. Dan Campbell's never been a coordinator in his career, and Dan Quinn's one of the more liked coaches in the league by players. They know the X's and O's, but they have an impact on those Jimmies and Joes in the locker room. And ultimately, I feel like that's what the Jaguars got to figure out. Who of the bunch is going to be the best leader? If that's Ben Johnson, you know what? Sign it up. Get the playbook down to Jacksonville, cut him a check. If it's Liam Cohen, the same thing. Sign him up, pair him up with Trevor Lawrence, and never look back. But if they think it's Aaron Glenn, a guy whose defense did give up 45 points to end their season, then that's still where they should go because ultimately that was one game. And if the Jaguars hire the right leader, the Jimmies and Joes are going to fill in the blanks and take care of the rest. Or maybe I'm just crazy.